Okay, let's look at the homework 1.2, 1.3, problem number 12. Right, so you have two functions given. F of x is equal to x plus 1 over x, and the g of x is equal to x plus 14 divided by x plus 2. Right, so let's do that. Right, first one is composition f of g. Right, so part A is f of g. Alright, so f of g is just we plug in g of x into f function. So you have f of g of x. Alright, so which is going to be equal to, right? So you have f, just to work from inside out, g of x is x plus 14 over x plus 2. Right, and this is going to be equal to, right? So every time you see x, we're going to put this guy. So you see x here, so we put this whole thing, x plus 14 over x plus 2. Alright, then plus reciprocal of x, so we take the reciprocal of that, so plus x plus 2 over x plus 14. Alright, and so that's the f of g of x. Right, and what would be the domain of this function? Right, so g of x is an inside function, and maybe we should write down the domain for each one. So domain of f, right, is going to be, right, so you have x on the bottom, so we cannot have x equals 0. So x is not equal to 0. Right, and the domain of g, so I'm gonna write it as d sub g, is going to be same way, fraction. So here's the denominator cannot be 0, so x cannot be equal to -2. Right, right, so that's the domain of each one. Right, first we look at the inside function. Right, so since we plug in g of x, it has to x has to satisfy this condition. So x cannot be equal to -2. Right, first we have to make sure that x cannot be equal to -2. Right, and since domain of f is not equal to 0, so we have to make sure when you plug in g of x, we have to make sure that the g of x is not equal to 0. Right, so let's see, g of x, which is x plus 14 over x plus 2. Right, so this cannot be equal to 0. Right, which means that the numerator cannot be equal to 0. So x plus 14 cannot be equal to 0. Right, and then we can just simply subtract 14 from both sides, so x cannot be equal to -14. Right, so the domain of f of g would be, so first we have to exclude -2, and also we have to exclude -14. So it's going to be negative infinity to -14, skip -14, and so -14, and skip 2, and then you go from 2 to positive infinity. Right, so that's the domain of f of g. All right, so let's type it in. All right, so f of g of x is x plus 14, and all over, let's see, I have to highlight this whole thing, all over x plus 2. Then you have 2 plus x plus 2. All right, then highlight these guys over x plus 14. So that was a function. And then the domain is you have to, so it's a negative infinity to negative 14. All right, then take the union. So go to sets and take the union, and negative 14 to negative 2. All right, then take the union, and then you have to go from a negative 2 to all the way to positive infinity. All right, so let's check the answer here. All right, so looks like we got part A correctly. All right, so let's look at part B. All right, so this is g of f. All right, so let's do that. All right, part B is g of f. So we have a g of f of x. All right, so in this case, we plug in f of x into the g function. All right, so let's work from inside out. So you have g. All right, f of x is x plus 1 over x. So every time you see x in the formula of g of x, we put x plus 1 over x. Right, so here x. So you have x plus 1 over x plus 14 over, right, I see x, so you have x plus 1 over x plus 2, right? And since I don't like having a fraction inside a fraction, I'm going to go ahead and multiply top and bottom by x. Right, just to make it look a little bit nicer. So you're gonna have you have x times x is x squared. Right, x times 1 over x, that will give you 1. Right, and x times 14 is 14x. 14x over x times x is x squared. Right, x times 1 over x is 1. Right, x times 2 is 2x. Right, so that would be the g of f of x. All right, so the domain is going to be, so since you have f of x, x has to be inside the domain, which means that x cannot be equal to 0. All right, and since f of x is plugged into g of x, f of x has to satisfy the domain here, which is cannot be equal to negative 2. So we have f of x cannot be equal to negative 2. Right? So which means that f of x, so x plus 1 over x cannot be equal to negative 2. Right? Again, I don't like fractions, so I'm going to just go ahead and multiply through by x. Right? That way we have x squared, and the times that is plus 1 is not equal to negative 2x. Right? Then we're going to just add 2x to both sides so that we can bring this negative 2x on the other side. So we're going to have x squared plus 2x plus 1, which is going to be equal to 0. Right? Or actually not equal to 0. Right? And luckily we can factor this out. So this, once you factor it out, you will get x plus 1 squared is not equal to 0, right? Which means that x cannot be equal to 1, negative 1. So this implies that x is not equal to negative 1. All right, so the domain of g of f, all right, so we know that the x cannot be 0 and also x cannot be negative 1, right? So let's do that. So x, so domain is going to be negative infinity, right, all the way to negative 1. Then skip negative 1, go all the way to 0, skip 0, then go all the way to positive infinity, right? So that's the domain of g of f. All right, so let's type it in. All right, so the formula was x squared, oops, sorry, I didn't hear, x squared plus 14x plus 1, right? Then highlight the whole thing, highlight, I'm gonna try to highlight the whole thing, yep, and divide by x squared, right, plus 2x plus 1, right, and the domain is, right, negative infinity to negative 1 and union negative 1 to 0 and the union and the 0 all the way to positive infinity, right? So let's check this answer. Okay, I came back and looks like we did the part B correctly as well, right? So let's do part C. So f of f. All right, we need more room, so I'm gonna get rid of all this. Okay, so part C is f of x. So you plug in f of x into itself. So f of x, right? But the f of x is x plus 1 over x, right? Then we plug this into itself. So I see x, so you put x plus 1 over x and plus 1 over x plus 1 over x. All right. Then I would probably just multiply top and bottom by x just to get rid of fraction inside a fraction. All right, so this is going to be, first two terms were okay, x plus 1 over x. All right, this guy, so you have x times 1 is going to give you x on top. All right, then x times x gives you x squared. And x times 1 over x is going to give you 1. So you're going to have that. All right. So that's f of x. All right. The domain is going to be, all right. So you can see that f of x is inside. So we have to make sure that the x is not equal to 0. All right. And the f of x is inside, so we have to make sure that the f of x, which is x plus 1 over x, is not equal to 0. Right? So we need to solve this, and you can see that this guy actually never equal to 0. You can see that maybe you can multiply top and bottom, multiply both sides by x. You see that you're going to get the x squared plus 1 is not equal to 0. Right? This guy is never equal to 0 because you have x squared is non-negative value. You're adding 1 to it, so it's never equal to 0. Right? So that's no problem. So only requirement is that x cannot be equal to 0. So the domain of f of f is going to be, right? Just 0 is a bad number, so negative infinity to 0, skip 0, oops, sorry, skip 0, then go all the way to positive infinity, right? So that's the domain of f, right? So let's type it in. All right, so the function was x plus 1 over x plus x over x squared plus 1, right? Then the domain is just 0 is eliminated, so then excluded. So it's a 0 and skip 0 and a union and a 0 and then go to positive infinity, right? So let's check this answer. Okay, I came back and looks like we got part C correctly as well, all right? So let's look at the part D, g of g. All right, so g of x, so we plug in g of x into itself. So looks like that. And g of x is x plus 14 over x plus 2, right? So we plug this into itself. So every time you see x, you put the whole thing in. So you have x plus 14 over x plus 2, right, plus 14 all over, right, x, so we're going to put the x plus 14 over x plus 2 plus 2, right? Just like before, I don't like having a fraction inside of a fraction, so I'm going to just multiply top by x plus 2 and also bottom by x plus 2, right? Just to make it look a little bit better. So this is going to be, all right, so you have cancel out, so you have x plus 14, right? Then you have to multiply 14 by x plus 2, so it's going to be 14x plus 28, right? On the bottom, you're going to have x plus 14, and then you multiply by 2, so it's going to be 2x plus 4, right? Which is going to give us, all right, combining x and 14x, we're going to have 15x. All right, combining 14 and 28, we're going to have 42 plus 42. All right, then combining x and 2x, we have 3x. And combining 14 and 4, we're going to have 18 there. All right, so looks like everyone's a multiple of 3, so it makes sense to divide top by 3 and also bottom by 3, just to make it look nicer here. So we have 15x times divided by 3 is 5x. All right, 42 divided by 3 is 14. All right, and 3x divided by 3 is x, and 18 divided by 3 is 6. So we have the formula for g of g. All right, so for domain y, so we have to make sure that x is inside the domain of g of x, which means that x cannot be equal to -2. So keep that in mind, x cannot be -2. All right, also the g of x, which is x plus 14 over x plus 2. Right, this guy cannot be equal to -2, right? So we can solve this by multiply both sides by quantity x plus 2. That way you get x plus 14 on the left. And the right hand side is going to be negative 2x. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Right? So we can just, let's see, move this guy to the left, 14 on the other side. So add 2x and subtract 14. That way add 2x, so you're going to get 3x on this side. And subtract 14, so it's going to be negative 18. Right? Then divide through by 3. 2 so actually not equal. Sorry, not equal. And x is going to be equal to negative 6. Not equal to. Right? So the numbers to avoid is negative 2 and a negative 6. So the domain of g of g would be, g of g would be negative infinity to negative 6. Skip negative 6. Go all the way to negative 2. Skip negative 2. And then go all the way to positive infinity. Right? So that's the domain. Right? So let's type it in. Alright, so it was, let's see, the formula was 5x plus 14 and divided by, oops. Alright, let's see, I want to highlight this thing. Okay, divided by x plus 6. Right? And domain is negative infinity, so negative infinity to negative 6. Skip negative, negative, I didn't type in, negative 6. Skip negative 6 and go to negative 2 and skip negative 2 and then go all the way to positive infinity. Alright, so let's check the answer. Okay, I came back and we did part D correctly as well. Alright, that's it. I hope that this was clear.